I'm wondering if they're ready for prime time now. Now I'm going to show you some examples here, and you'll see what my concerns are. So this is a film. It was a documentary about the Uyghurs. They're an oppressed group in Asia, and it had lots of scenes from the woman's hometown in Asia, and also she was in the U.S. and doing advocacy in Washington D.C. And so what you saw in this particular frame graph, I ran it through both technologies, Google Vision, this is what it saw, and Amazon Recognition, this is what it saw. So it got this one pretty good. It sees landmark. You know, it could tell that it was like a significant building. It couldn't tell it was the Capitol, but it's on a dome. It sees sky. It's the daytime. You got a kind of crazy words of occasional like phenomenon. That keeps showing up in a lot of the pictures I sent you. All right, it's a phenomenon. And then the Amazon did about the same, maybe a little more concise. And then in the middle here we've got Google correctly recognized the camel. Or it was a camel-like mammal, or a gravy camel, wasn't quite sure, right? I actually tried this where I said, you know, because they have these confidence scores, I said, just give me the words you're really highly confident in and throw away the rest. Well, that kind of backfired because it can only be confident about the most broad terms. So it might have said, I'm really confident that it's a mammal, which isn't very helpful. I'm not so confident that it's a camel. So that's a challenge that we'll face if we have to do anything with this. Now this one, unfortunately, this film documented some conflict, and in one of the scenes, there was a person who had been shot. And what Google Vision saw on that one was vertebrate crocodilia reptile. I'm like, ouch. You know, obviously, because if it maybe had been standing, the person had been standing, it would have recognized the person, but because it's lying on the ground, it's not recognized. And so, if we can't, you know, if we couldn't invest in either throwing that away or, you know, getting some human review of this, I'm not sure that this would fly as a solution until this got better. So, and there are other agonizing things. There was like throughout this film, the woman, her hairstyle was braided, and it insisted on calling her a girl instead of a woman. And I felt like it could have done better than that. So anyways, it's something I'm interested in looking in and getting people's feedback on in terms of, this would help discovery as much as it would help accessibility, because there's a lot going on. Why I chose this film, by the way, there were 10-minute segments of it where there was no dialogue. It was just people walking around, going about their life, obviously doing something that the filmmaker felt was important for the viewers to see. And so, you know, it was essential to have description here for somebody who couldn't hear what was going on or see what was going on. So I'm interested maybe in just using this technology to enhance the discoverability. So when it does see certain landmarks or whatever that aren't mentioned in the metadata, then you might still find this film. But I'm not sure it's ready to be turned into a description for an alternative. Like you see in many OCR solutions, you don't show that to the user. You just make it for discoverability, and you show them the picture. But there again, there's another thing where we have a lot of text on our platform, and we get dinged for AA compliance when we only have OCR. It's, well, we'd love to show it to you so the screen readers can see it, but it's pretty messy. You know, it's going to be pronouncing a lot of punctuation. So I don't know. It's one of those challenges that we face as technology developers, and I think that's all I have to say.
Oh, sorry, this is Mike Eiler from Smite. He's probably going to introduce himself.
I will. You know, thanks for having us out today. I appreciate it. It's always nice to talk about, you know, having the vendor's point of view to share with you guys is always nice, because, you know, we are on the other side of it. You know, we're still partners with you guys, but we have a different aspect. So real quickly, I'll kind of walk through Sweating's journey through kind of what we did with Digital Canvas. So who we are, so Swank Motion Pictures, founded in 1937, so we're actually celebrating our 81st year this year. Ray Swank started the company, that's how we get the name. Tim, his son, runs it, and now Chris and Peter, his sons, work there as well. And Chris has 2 sons now, so I'll eventually be working for Charlie. Eventually, so. We're based in St. Louis, Missouri. We are the largest distributor of non-theatrical films for most of Hollywood studios in all of the non-theatrical markets. So basically anywhere that's not a theater, we handle licensing. So we already handle all the public performance licensing for the campuses here. We work with hospitals, we work with cruise ships, churches, parks, recs, K-12 schools, prisons, the whole bit. The digital campus story. So I was actually, I've been at Swank for 10.5 years. I was actually working in the hospital market for the entertainment side. And we started getting calls about, a librarian calling in or faculty calling in, asking for greater access for content, because they knew we handled the public performance licensing, so for all of these studios. So they said, hey Mike, we want to start the streaming department up, and we want you to start working at it and to help distance education. I was like, great. I was like, what's distance education? This was back in 2008, so education was not my market at all. So we've stumbled along our way, and we're kind of trying to catch up. We take your feedback, as partners, and just try to do our best with what you guys need. So everything we do now is based on your suggestions, and basically tell us what we're doing wrong. So we do appreciate it. So these are all the studios we work with. So most of Hollywood. So everybody from Disney to MGM, Focus, Paramount. We have access to every single content they've ever produced. So we have access to a lot of film. Until like Doug's point, some of the stuff that we have access to, sometimes you just can't get captions for it. So I'll kind of go through our accessibility statement. And basically what this says is, you can read it if you want, but basically it's kind of, if we have it, we'll provide it. And if we don't have it, we'll ask the studios for it. And if we can't get it, we just can't provide it for you. To Kyle's point earlier, we are the classic middleman. We don't own the content, we only provide it. So we can only provide what the studios give us. So what I'm going to talk a bit real quick about is the closed captions, language options we have, screen readers, and restricted video. So closed captions, pretty simple. It's been around for forever. Thank you, WGBH. I'll go on to that. So we have access to captions. Thankfully for the Hollywood studios, they have access to a ton of content. So we probably have about 95% of roughly 26,000 titles. And again, to Doug's point, the captions that we don't have is I think we have 150 silent films, over 600 foreign feature films, and like Paramount has had 2 lot fires. So we'll get requested for a film from like the 30s or 40s. We'll go to get ask for captions for it. Paramount will say, "You want what film?" They're going back and dusting off the dust for it. And come to find out, they don't actually have the source content for it anymore. So then we'll remove it from our category, but catalog. But it happens that sometimes we can't get the source content, or a studio will pick up, titles from another studio, but they don't actually own the source content either. So sometimes there's a copyright battle for trying to get digitizing the content. So again, if we have the content, we can provide it. So most of the time, it's not usually an issue. Sometimes it comes up, and I think Laura brought up earlier about schools deciding not to use content because of this. So I can speak, I work in the California market as well. They are under a whole different guidelines from you guys in the Boston East Coast market. And again, they can't buy anything that doesn't have captions. In the Boston market or East Coast, New York, Florida, we give them the option, like, hey, you just ordered 20 titles, 19 of them have captions, we just can't get the caption of this one title. Most of the East Coast schools will like, okay, we'll still take it. We'll tell the faculty we'll provide a DVD or something. California's completely different. They're like, nope, can't take it. We're only going to go with the 19. So it does happen to where schools on the West Coast are a lot, I don't want to say scared, but they're more compliant when it comes to AV compliance than some of the East Coast markets we work with. So for languages, Since we do work with cruise ships, which is an international market, I think Holly talked about this earlier, you know, having the foreign language on the captions and stuff like that. I was in ADA compliance at ALA, and the speaker was actually French, and she actually talked about this. When she was in grad school and using video, she had, in her mind, had to transcript it from English to French, and then back to English again, you know, and it was too fast for her to be doing that. So as a, you know, foreign language student or an ESL student, it's not a typical disability, but, you know, for the student experience, it is much easier for them to learn in their native language. So, you know, working with the California market, they had a school order the Matrix, but they wanted the Spanish captions and audio available. And I was like, why are you teaching, you know, Spanish using the Matrix? And they're like, well, actually, they're teaching religion using the Matrix, but they have a bunch of ESL students who wanted the native language to teach them that. So it was great. I know Matrix religion. It's pretty classic. So luckily, we do have a lot of audio and video capabilities in other languages because we're international markets we work with. Again, it is nice working with the Hollywood studios because they do have some additional stuff like that. Moving on to screen readers, we use Google's Widevine, which is it's compatible with JAWS and a couple of other ones. They actually have a built-in screen reader, Chromevox, so it's a simple click on the extension. So if you're using Chrome, it's already kind of loaded in, you just hit the extension. And I think Mac uses VoiceOver, which works pretty well on the Mac. You know, and it's, you guys know screen readers, you just kind of click through, press play, reads everything for you, so it's, you know, fairly simple. And then audio description. So, can anybody name the very first commercial available DVD with audio description? 1997 was when it first came out. No, actually it was Terminator 2. Terminator 2. So Terminator 2 was the first DVD that came out in 1997 that was available. Our first content that we got in-house was Pocahontas and Tarzan in 2000. So from 97 till 2002, I think out of all the films and studios, I think there was 10 total DVDs that had audio description. I mean, that's how new it was back then. And it, you know, it's definitely picking up some for sure. I'm not sure what happened, but I think in 2012, and I can't find what happened, but there was a huge jump from audio description available on DVDs. And if you guys know, tell me, but from 2012 to you know, today, almost every you know, DVD or film that comes out has audio description. We currently have 450 titles that are available with audio description, but it's going to be all the new content. So any new content that we get from the studio, so whenever Warner Brothers, Sony, Disney, whenever they release a you know, a new title, it comes to DVD, you know, we get the streaming rights for it. We automatically get all the audio tracks, all the captions for anything new, all the audio description tracks for anything new. So we have all this, you know, kind of available. We've only had 2 schools ask for audio description, you know, out of all the schools we work with. And even then, it was an inquiry, not actually, you know, one of the purchase. So like, hey, do you have it? Yes, we do. So we can provide it. It just depends on what they're looking for. Now we are lucky to work with the Hollywood studios because we have all this content. We are also kind of beholden to them because we have to rely on them. So the problem that we'll have with audio description is getting the older content. So they're not likely to go back and get, you know, the 1967 version of 1,000 Clowns audio descripted with Morgan Freeman talking through it, just because, you know, we're the only market at Swain that uses 1,000 Clowns. You know, churches don't, everybody else doesn't. So our market's small, so it's hard to get it. Now we can still go back and ask it, and if that gets re-released on HD or if it comes out on Blu-ray, automatically they're already doing the audio description tracks and stuff like that. Same thing with captions. So it's good to work with those guys, but we're also reliant on those people to give us the content. But it's, you know, doesn't hurt to ask at all. So that's pretty much it I have for me. Was there any questions? Yeah.
So you mentioned that sometimes you aren't able to get captions, and sort of you're in a tough position because you're the middleman sort of between them.
Correct.
I'm wondering, are you ever able to secure an agreement from the group that would allow either you or to pass on to the end user the rights to create captions? So sometimes there is some question from a copyright standpoint.
Yeah, we do work with the studios to get that, and they kind of get it, you know. From the markets that we work with, you know, sometimes it's not always prevalent, but we work with them to, you know, exactly what you're saying, like, hey, you guys can't provide it, can we go to a third party and make sure it's available? It's an ongoing discussion. Their problem is, not their problem, but their concern is quality. So they don't want like a VHS quality with like scripts on running on the thing, because they don't want that representative of their studio. So it comes down to quality. So if we can get a clean quality digital content with it, they'd be open to it. It's just a discussion that that's still ongoing with them. Yeah.
So you're saying that if the studio doesn't provide the captioning, you know, then we're at a loss. So have you been able to, I mean, you can make a case for fair use, can you, for taking on the captioning yourself?
You can make a case for fair use.
So it's not something that you would take on as a middle person?
No, because we're a for-profit college, or a for-profit
Right,
institution, so it's tougher for us.
Yeah,
And-
no, you know, I'm just curious.
No, it's,
Especially for small schools that have like.
for sure. And the good thing is, you know, we have been working with these guys for over 80 years, so they do trust us, you know.
Yeah.
And when we do say, hey, look, this content is needed, and they are seeing more and more ADA compliance, you know, like Netflix being sued, and the California colleges, you know, suing and stuff like that, so they get it, the ADA compliance. But a lot of times for them, it's just the source material is just not available.
Right.
And that's kind of what they run into. It's not like, hey, I have this VHS that I don't want to rip. It's like, I have a VHS and it is no longer available. So it doesn't happen often. Perfect.
All right, thanks, Mike. I just want to double check, no questions left for Shannon from Canopy. She's still on the phone. All right, we're all done. Thank you. All right, thank you. Perfect, thanks. All right, bye-bye.
Are you going back to the library? Can you take this with you?
And that'll do it
you
for
don't
our
bring it back
formal
until
program
later
today. We have the rooms before, veterans will be here.
If I can give you one other thing to bring back
There's
too.
probably leftovers.
Because I'm not planning on going back.
Out in
I've
the
been here
atrium
since
there, so please feel free to hang out and chat.
For a little after.
We're so glad you could come today, and thank you, of course, to
I'm
DC.
gonna stay here,
and,
then I'm gonna help
Ministry of
clean up,
Technology
and
Library
I'm gonna go
for
straight
hosting us, and for the Boston Library.
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
paying.
And then I'm gonna give you something else.
Thank you all.
Yeah.